In the vast expanse of the galaxy, war was nothing new. Galactic empires rose and fell with every cycle of the stars. The most dominant forces were technologically advanced civilizations, their fleets equipped with weapons so powerful they could obliterate entire planets with a single strike. Yet, in this universe filled with such overwhelming power, one species stood out: humans. Humans, at first glance, seemed insignificant in the great galactic chessboard. Their technology was considered primitive by many, their ships outdated, their weapons barely a match for the advanced alien armadas. But what humans lacked in raw power, they made up for in something far more dangerous: resourcefulness. And it was this quality that had led to their survival. The humans' last line of defense was their Relic fleet, a collection of ancient warships that had been gathering dust in the deep recesses of forgotten military bases. These ships were relics of a time long past, vessels that had once roamed the stars during humanity's early days of space exploration. Their technology was outdated, their weapon systems rusty and ineffective compared to the hyper-advanced alien warships that now ruled the galaxy. The galaxy had grown complacent, and the Galactic Council, a coalition of powerful alien species, had long since dismissed humanity as an insignificant threat. Their military assets were nothing more than a joke, nothing more than rusting husks of forgotten warships. At least, that was a view of the alien invaders. But when the call came for humanity to rally its forces against an invading alien armada, there was little choice but to dust off the relics. The decision was made, and the fleet, once considered obsolete, was sent out. Some of the ships were old beyond measure, some barely functional, and yet these would be the vessels carrying humanity's fate. In the eyes of the galaxy's powers, this was a laughable situation. The alien species believed they had seen this kind of thing before. A weaker, less developed species, taking up arms with broken tools. Their laughter echoed across the stars as the Relic ships prepared for battle. There was no way they could stand against the highly advanced alien armadas. Or so they thought. Section 2. The alien threat, a force to be reckoned with. The invaders came, not with the subtlety of shadow, but with the roar of conquering might. Their fleet, a symphony of precision and power, was an embodiment of their military superiority. They were the Zethar, a species so advanced, their ships were practically untouchable by conventional weapons. Their technology was leagues ahead of anything humanity had ever dreamed of. They had no mercy, no room for negotiation, and they were set on one goal: total domination. The Zethar's armada entered human space, their sleek ships cutting through stars like a blade through cloth. They had wiped out weaker species before, without even breaking a sweat. Their weapons could disintegrate a fleet with a single volley, and their tactics were flawless. The Zethar fleet moved like a well-oiled machine, with every member of their military perfectly coordinated. Humanity, in their eyes, was no more than an insect to be crushed. But when the first skirmish began, the Zethar were faced with something unexpected. The Relic fleet was far more than what they had bargained for. The first shots fired from the humans' outdated ships barely even scratched the surface of the alien invaders' advanced armor. The aliens laughed, their mockery echoing across the battlefield. This would be a swift victory, just like every other conquest they had made. However, the Relic fleet did not crumble under the weight of alien superiority. The ships may have been old, but they were fiercely determined. The humans aboard these relics had learned to make do with what they had. They were resourceful, creative, and most importantly, resilient. The battle raged on, and the humans did not retreat. They fought, not with superior weaponry, but with sheer grit and determination. The Zethar's arrogance grew with every passing minute, their commanders making light of the human resistance. They couldn't fathom that these primitive ships would fight back with such tenacity. Yet, as the battle continued, the Relic fleet began to show signs of something the Zethar had missed: humanity's ingenuity. Though their weapons lacked the sheer firepower of the Zethar, the humans began to adapt, making use of their surroundings, exploiting weaknesses in the Zethar fleet's formation. The Relic fleet, though old, began to act unpredictably, keeping the aliens on edge. The Zethar fleet, once so sure of their victory, began to feel the first stirrings of doubt. Section 3. The roar of the human warship. The moment that turned the tide came when one of the Relic warships, The USS Prometheus roared to life in a way no one could have anticipated. The Prometheus was the oldest of the fleet, with systems so outdated that it had been considered little more than a decoy. But what the Zethar did not understand was that the Prometheus was not just another ship. It was a symbol of human perseverance. The Prometheus was about to show the Zethar exactly what humanity was capable of. The ship's crew, led by Captain Lucas Davenport, had spent years studying the ancient systems, figuring out how to make them work in this modern era. As the Zethar fleet moved to launch another strike, the Prometheus fired its engines to life, its aging reactors suddenly firing up with a power no one had expected. The first volley was a fury of hellfire. The Zethar's advanced shields, which had deflected human fire with ease in earlier battles, buckled under the force of Prometheus's unexpected assault. The ancient warship, its weaponry enhanced by human ingenuity, blasted through the Zethar's defenses, and for the first time in the battle, the alien fleet was forced to retreat. Captain Davenport, standing on the bridge, could hardly believe his eyes. The ship's ancient weapons, thought to be obsolete, had been re-engineered and reactivated with the power of human will. The Prometheus was no longer just an old relic. It had become a symbol of human might. The roar of the warship reverberated across the battlefield, and the Zethar, once laughing at humanity's attempt to fight, were now retreating in confusion and fear. The Relic fleet had awakened, and humanity was no longer the joke it once was. The Zethar were in trouble, and they knew it. Section 4, the final showdown and victory. The final battle was nothing short of a masterpiece. The human fleet, though small, was determined. The Prometheus led the charge, its weapon systems enhanced by human ingenuity in a way the Zethar had never anticipated. The Zethar, once overconfident, now found themselves in a deadly game of cat and mouse. With every shot fired, the Relic fleet proved that it was not just about advanced weapons, but about how you use the tools at your disposal. The Zethar were slowly driven back, their once unstoppable fleet now on the retreat. The humans were no longer just fighting with their weapons. They were fighting with their hearts, their passion, and their unwavering will to survive. In the end, it was the Prometheus that struck the final blow. With one last strike, it pierced the heart of the Zethar command ship, sending it spiraling into the void. The alien fleet, crippled and disorganized, had no choice but to retreat. Humanity had won. The victory was not just a military one. It was a message to the galaxy. The Relic fleet had been the backbone of humanity's defense during the early years of space exploration. These ships were designed for interstellar travel, but their weapons and technologies were old by galactic standards. They were clunky, their reactors temperamental, and their weapon systems barely functional. Many were abandoned, collecting dust in the forgotten corners of spaceports, relics of a time when humanity had to defend itself from smaller, local threats. The galactic community had long ago written off humanity as irrelevant. The great alien powers had advanced far beyond the primitive species of Earth. Their sleek, towering warships were powered by hyper-efficient quantum reactors, equipped with weapons capable of annihilating entire fleets in mere moments. To the aliens, the Relic fleet was a joke. How could such outdated, seemingly obsolete ships stand a chance against the might of the galaxy's elite military forces? Humans knew the truth. Resources were scarce, and their fleet, though old, still held hidden potential. While the aliens laughed at the idea of humans relying on such ancient ships, humanity's leaders had made the choice to mobilize their forces. If there was any hope of defending Earth and its colonies, the Relic fleet would have to do. The decision was made in desperation, but it was also made with purpose. Humanity's survival depended on these old ships. Admiral Victoria Henson, the seasoned leader of the human fleet, knew that the odds were slim, but she was determined. If the humans were to survive, it would be through ingenuity, resourcefulness, and the unbreakable spirit that had defined humanity for centuries. The fleet set off, some ships barely able to maintain their velocity, others relying on makeshift repairs and outdated systems. Yet, as they journeyed toward the heart of enemy territory, something began to happen. The ships, with their quirks and eccentricities, began to act in ways no one had anticipated. They were old, but they were alive in a way that the alien ships could never understand. Section 2. The Alien Threat. A force to be reckoned with continued. The Zethar were a race of superior conquerors. Their ships were like sharks in the vast ocean of space, sleek, powerful, and unstoppable. They had wiped out countless civilizations across the galaxy, each conquest adding to their ever-growing empire. They saw themselves as the natural rulers of the stars, and their advanced weaponry and cutting-edge technology were proof of their superiority. When the Zethar learned of the human resistance, they were not impressed. To them, humanity was just another primitive species, a collection of fragile beings clinging to life in a galaxy that was far beyond their reach. The very notion of a relic fleet, a fleet of outdated, poorly equipped ships, seemed laughable. They expected humanity to surrender immediately, to fall in line with the galaxy's established powers. But the Zethar were wrong. From the moment the first skirmish began, the human fleet proved that it was not to be underestimated. Though their ships were old and their weapon systems slow to recharge, the humans fought with ferocity. They did not possess the advanced targeting systems that the Zethar did, but they made up for it with creativity and brilliance. The Relic fleet, once mocked for its age, had a heart that the Zethar could not comprehend. The Zethar commanders laughed when the first blast from human weapons ricocheted off their ships. They dismissed the humans as nothing more than an inconvenience. However, as the skirmish went on, they began to realize something startling. The humans weren't giving up. The Relic fleet ships, though outdated, were tougher than they appeared. Their armor had been reinforced over the years, with salvaged materials from various forgotten technologies. Each human ship seemed to have an unexpected advantage, an unexpected twist in its design that made it unpredictable even to the Zethar. Section 3. The roar of a human warship continued. The USS Prometheus was the flagship of the Relic fleet, a ship that was older than most of the crew aboard it. Its hull was scarred from countless battles, its weapon systems outdated, and its reactors barely holding on to their power. But the Prometheus had something that the Zethar could never have anticipated: human ingenuity. Captain Lucas Davenport, once a test pilot, had spent years in the cockpit of the Prometheus, learning the ins and outs of its aging systems. He had spent countless hours in the ship's tech bay, working alongside engineers to patch up the ancient reactors and reinforce the ship's aging shields. No one believed it would be enough. But Captain Davenport believed in the crew, believed in their ability to overcome any challenge. As the Zethar fleet approached, prepared to strike with overwhelming force, the Prometheus and the other human ships knew they had only one shot. The Zethar forces had underestimated them, and now it was time to show them just how dangerous a cornered animal could be. The first strike from the Prometheus took the Zethar completely by surprise. The ship fired a volley of laser blasts, a blinding streak of light that tore through the alien shields, sending shock waves through the enemy ranks. The Zethar were caught off guard. This shouldn't have been possible. How could an ancient human warship break through their impenetrable defenses? It was the Prometheus's core reactor, a modified fusion engine, that made all the difference. It had been converted into a hyper-efficient power source, one that allowed the ship to release bursts of energy that no one, not even the humans, had thought possible. The Zethar fleet hesitated. The battle was not over, but for the first time, they realized something. Humanity was not easy prey. The warship's roar had shaken the very fabric of the battlefield. It was a cry of defiance that echoed throughout the galaxy, shaking the alien fleet to its core. Section 4. The final showdown and victory continued. With the Prometheus now leading the charge, the rest of the Relic fleet followed suit. The alien fleet, once so sure of their victory, was now reeling from the unexpected turn of events. The Zethar commanders scrambled to reorganize their forces, but the humans were already upon them. The final confrontation came when Admiral Henson gave the order for a full-on assault. The human fleet, though small, had the element of surprise on its side. The Zethar, with all their advanced technology, couldn't predict the guerrilla tactics the humans employed. They fought like a swarm of wasps, attacking from unexpected angles, using the environment of the battlefield to their advantage. The Prometheus led the charge again, firing relentlessly at the heart of the alien fleet. The Zethar ships, despite their advanced technology, found themselves unable to handle the unpredictability of the human tactics. The Relic fleet, once written off as a collection of junk, was now a powerful symbol of human resilience. With one final devastating strike, the Prometheus pierced a command ship of the Zethar fleet, destroying their flagship in a fiery explosion. The Zethar, utterly stunned, began to retreat. It was over. The human fleet had won. Against all odds, against every expectation, humanity had emerged victorious. The Zethar, once the proud conquerors of the galaxy, had been defeated by the most unlikely of foes, a fleet of ancient warships, powered by human ingenuity and the unbreakable will of its crew. The once proud Relic fleet had been designed in an era when humanity faced a constant threat of war from both within and beyond. The ships were built not for conquest, but for survival, to protect humanity's fledgling colonies scattered across the stars. Over the years, they had become little more than rusting memories of a bygone age. As the human race evolved, so did their technology, and the Relic fleet was left to decay, forgotten by all but a few. Yet, when the Zethar arrived, unannounced with an army of invincible warships, the Relic fleet became the last line of defense for a species that was determined to survive no matter the odds. It was a final, desperate attempt to defend their people from annihilation. The Zethar had a vast, highly advanced fleet, ships so sleek and powerful that they could tear through human defenses like a hot knife through butter. Their weapons were powered by hypermatter reactors, and their shields were impervious to all but the most cutting-edge weapons. The Relic fleet had none of this advanced technology. Instead, they relied on their old reactors, which had barely enough power to keep their ships operational, and their age-old weapons, which had not seen real combat in decades. Still, the human resolve was stronger than any metal. The leaders of the human colonies saw only one choice: mobilize the Relic fleet. The plan was simple. No matter how outdated the ships were, they were the last hope for humanity's survival. And if humanity was going to go down, they would go down fighting. Section 2. The Alien Threat. A force to be reckoned with continued. When the Zethar Empire arrived at the outer rim of human space, they did so with crushing might. Their warships glided silently through the void, their weapons capable of turning planets into ash with a single strike. They came not to negotiate, but to conquer. The Zethar had never encountered a species that posed a real challenge, until humanity, the Zethar leadership, particularly Admiral Turok, viewed humanity as insignificant, a primitive species that was no threat to their dominance. Their intelligence gathering revealed the Relic fleet, a collection of obsolete warships that barely made it out of the hangar. The fleet's weapon systems were antiquated, and its engines, though functional, were far slower than the Zethar ships. The Zethar Supreme Command saw this as a perfect opportunity to demonstrate their unassailable supremacy. The Relic fleet would be crushed, and humanity would surrender without question. Yet, as the Zethar warships positioned themselves above Earth and its colonies, something unexpected happened. Humanity's ancient ships did not flee in fear. They did not crumble in defeat. Instead, they prepared for battle. The crew members aboard the Relic fleet's vessels were mostly veterans, engineers, and soldiers who had survived the earlier wars of humanity's expansion. Their faces were lined with experience, their eyes burning with a fierce sense of duty. Even if their ships were outclassed by every measure, the human spirit was not easily extinguished. The Zethar watched in amusement as the first skirmishes began. The Relic fleet fired its weapons, clunky, weak blasts that barely dented the Zethar shields. The aliens laughed. It was not a fight, but rather a tragedy. The humans were throwing themselves into fray, their warships falling apart. But they were not retreating. They fought, and they fought bravely. The Zethar underestimation of humanity's resolve would soon be their biggest mistake. Section 3. The roar of the human warships continued. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Relic fleet was not going to back down. While the Zethar easily overwhelmed some of the older ships, the USS Prometheus, flagship of the human fleet, had a few surprises hidden beneath its decaying hull. Captain Lucas Davenport, a veteran of countless wars, stood at the helm. He knew his ship's weaknesses better than anyone, but he also knew every ship's strength, even if that strength lay in surprising places. On the surface, the Prometheus was a mess. Old weapon systems, faulty engines, and crew members working tirelessly to keep everything together. But beneath the battered surface, human ingenuity had begun to shine. The ship's ancient fusion reactor, for instance, had been re-engineered to produce bursts of energy far beyond what had been designed to handle. The weapon systems, though rudimentary, had been tweaked to unleash unexpected power. It was when Prometheus unleashed its first devastating salvo that the Zethar realized their grave mistake. The first energy blast tore through the Zethar flagship's shields, disabling its central core. The Prometheus, previously written off as a relic, had just brought down one of the most powerful ships in the Zethar fleet. For a moment, the Zethar were stunned into silence. The Prometheus's roar echoed through the galaxy, a cry of defiance and survival. The once mock Relic fleet had awakened, and it was more than just a fleet of old ships. It was now a symbol of human resilience, a fleet that would not bow, not break, and never give up. Admiral Tarak's confidence shattered. Victory was no longer certain. Section 4. The final showdown and victory continued. The tide of battle had turned. The Zethar fleet, previously so confident in their victory, now found themselves facing an opponent they could not predict. The humans, using their outdated technology in new and unexpected ways, were fighting back with such ferocity that the Zethar could no longer treat them like a mere footnote in galactic history. The Prometheus, along with the rest of the Relic fleet, attacked with precision and cunning. Using hit-and-run tactics, they struck from unexpected angles, exploiting the Zethar's overconfidence and flaws in their formation. Guerrilla warfare, something that was not in the playbook for these advanced aliens, was now humanity's greatest weapon. As the final assault began, the Zethar, disoriented and desperate, attempted to regroup, but it was too late. The Prometheus, now a symbol of human might, led the charge. Its reactor burst to full power, sending waves of energy pulsing from its weapons, ripping through the Zethar fleet's ranks. The Relic fleet followed suit, firing relentlessly, hammering down the alien ships one by one. The battle reached its climax when Captain Davenport, seizing an opportunity, led the Prometheus straight toward the Zethar flagship, now heavily damaged but still operational. With a final roar of power, the Prometheus rammed the Zethar flagship, sending it into a death spiral before erupting in a fiery explosion. The Zethar fleet, now leaderless and disorganized, retreated into the depths of space, leaving humanity victorious. The Relic fleet had not only survived, it had won. As the remaining human ships limped back to Earth, Captain Davenport stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the stars. The Zethar Empire, once thought invincible, had been driven from human space. The victory was a message to the galaxy: never underestimate humanity. The Relic fleet, a collection of old, forgotten ships, had roared to life and secured humanity's place in the stars. The Relic fleet had spent decades gathering dust in forgotten military yards scattered across humanity's outer colonies. These ships were relics of an earlier time in human history, a time when survival was a focus, not conquest. Despite their outdated systems and rusted exteriors, the fleet had played a significant role in humanity's survival against external threats in the early days of interstellar exploration. But as human colonies grew and expanded, the Relic fleet was pushed aside in favor of newer, more advanced vessels. These newer ships were faster, stronger, and equipped with far superior technology, leaving the older fleet to be relegated to museums, scrapyards, and the backwater planets of the galaxy. For the Zethar, an advanced and ruthless alien species that ruled vast stretches of the galaxy, the Relic fleet was a joke. Their advanced ships, made of lightweight alloys and armed with quantum beam cannons, easily outclassed humanity's old warships. The Zethar had wiped out weaker species in the past, and they viewed humanity's efforts to mobilize their ancient fleet as a desperate last stand, something they would crush with ease. Yet, in this forgotten corner of the galaxy, the Relic fleet found new life. A select group of humans, veterans of past wars and scientists who had dedicated their lives to keeping these ships functional, came together to form a last-ditch defense. They had one objective: protect humanity at all costs. Whether their ships were outdated or not, the fleet would stand strong as humanity's final defense. Section 2. The Alien Threat. A force to be reckoned with continued. The Zethar Empire was a force to be reckoned with, an ancient, technologically superior species. They had long viewed themselves as the galaxy's rulers, subjugating weaker civilizations without hesitation. With ships capable of generating shields that could deflect entire asteroid fields and weapons powerful enough to shatter moons, the Zethar were a terrifying presence in the galaxy. Their military doctrine was one of overwhelming force and relentless pursuit. They did not negotiate, and they did not offer mercy. The Zethar had come to wipe humanity from the stars, viewing humans as little more than an insignificant species that had outlived its usefulness. Led by the Zethar Supreme Commander, Tarak, the alien fleet was nearly unstoppable. Their fleet consisted of over 100 ships, each one bristling with advanced weaponry and devastating technology. Their arrival in human space was swift, and the Zethar wasted no time in sending scouts to assess the human defenses. What they found only confirmed their belief. The humans were no threat. When the Zethar saw the Relic fleet, they were amused. How could these rusted, outdated ships hope to face the might of the Zethar Empire? With a dismissive sneer, Tarak ordered the fleet to prepare for an easy conquest, underestimating the tenacity of the human spirit. The first skirmishes were almost laughable, with human ships barely scratching the surface of Zethar shields. The aliens laughed, easily destroying the weaker ships of the Relic fleet. But there was something in the way the humans fought back that caught the Zethar off guard. Section 3. The roar of the human warships continued. The USS Prometheus, the flagship of the Relic fleet, was the first to make a significant impact in the battle. Despite its ancient design and outdated systems, the Prometheus had one advantage the Zethar had completely overlooked: human creativity. Captain Lucas Davenport, the commanding officer of the Prometheus, had spent years studying the ship's aging systems. He knew its weaknesses intimately, but also knew how to make its strengths work in unexpected ways. The ship's ancient fusion reactor was a key to their success. While it lacked the hyper-efficiency of modern reactors, it was capable of producing bursts of energy that could be redirected into devastating power surges. In the heat of battle, as the Zethar forces advanced, the Prometheus fired a power surge, a previously untested weapon that the crew had been working on in secret. The blast struck the lead Zethar warship, the Doombringer, square in the center, causing a catastrophic explosion. The Zethar fleet, unprepared for Prometheus's sudden and violent counterattack, staggered. For the first time, the Zethar began to realize that they were not facing an easy victory. The Relic fleet, though old and outdated, was more resourceful than anyone had imagined. The Prometheus, now a symbol of human resilience, was leading the charge, and the Zethar, no longer laughing, began to retreat in disarray. The Zethar underestimated human ingenuity. While their ships had advanced technology, the Relic fleet had something much harder to quantify: the spirit of humanity, a relentless drive to adapt and overcome. Section 4. The final showdown and victory continued. The Zethar, shocked and disoriented, attempted to regroup, but the Relic fleet had already shifted the momentum in their favor. Captain Davenport and his crew aboard the Prometheus pressed their advantage, coordinating with the rest of the fleet to launch a final offensive. The Prometheus charged headlong into the heart of the Zethar formation, its weapons blazing as the human crew fired with precision. The Relic fleet followed in formation, with ships targeting the weak points in the Zethar's armor. Each ship, though old and battered, fought with the courage and determination of soldiers who had nothing left to lose. The final clash occurred near the heart of the Zethar fleet, where the Zethar flagship, the Doombringer, was positioned. This time, the Relic fleet did not hesitate. They attacked with everything they had. The Prometheus's final strike was a devastating one, a precise energy pulse from its re-engineered reactor, aimed directly at the Doombringer's weak spot. The alien flagship exploded in a fiery burst, sending shockwaves to the surrounding fleet. The Zethar were left reeling. The loss of their flagship caused confusion and panic among their forces. The Relic fleet had just destroyed the heart of the Zethar Empire's military might. The remaining Zethar ships, disorganized and demoralized, began a chaotic retreat. It was over. Humanity had won. Against all odds, the Relic fleet, once laughed at and dismissed as obsolete, had proven that resilience and ingenuity could overcome the most advanced military forces in the galaxy. The Zethar Empire, though powerful, had learned a valuable lesson that day: never underestimate humanity. Epilogue: a new dawn for humanity. The victory over the Zephyr was a turning point for humanity. The Relic fleet, once a symbol of forgotten technology, had proven to be the cornerstone of humanity's defense. The battle was not just about old ships or outdated technology. It was about the human spirit and the unshakable belief that no matter the odds, humanity would never back down. Captain Davenport and Admiral Henson, leaders of the Relic fleet, were hailed as heroes. The Prometheus became a symbol of victory, and the story of how humanity rose from the ashes of its obsolescence will be told across the galaxy for generations to come. The Zephyr, licking their wounds, would never again underestimate the tenacity and willpower of humankind. They would retreat into the depths of space, their imperial ambitions shattered. The galaxy would forever remember the day when the Relic fleet roared to life and changed the course of history.